Look.
How you doing, man? I had to leave out of my house, man. I don't know whether that water's coming over that levee or what.
The last I heard, it's not.
So you haven't heard about that water coming over that levee from the lake?
No. Check it out.
Because the water started rising so high in my two-story apartment, I had to get out, man.
Where's that at?
Right across the North Robinson overpass.
Okay, I'm gonna go down and check it out, though. Any word on the levee? Do you know anything about the levee? Is it gone? Is it good? Is it... Some dude just came up to me that like water's up to his apartment in the second story. So I'm gonna go check it out.
Where's emergency?
The water is coming up. Are they trapped in a house? Yes, they are. They're trapped in.
Oh, God.
She's trying to get on the table and can't. Ha! Ha!
We're like under 9 feet of water here. We're trying to get out. We have a baby. There's 5 of us. We're very frightened.
Oh, God, please let us stop.
Pray for me, huh?
Oh, okay. I will pray. I'm going to have to pray for everybody, even myself.
That morning, after Katrina, everything changed that day. My house was in the 8th ward, almost the beginning of the 9th ward. We were right on the railroad tracks across from the canal. And we're like right on the levee. My place was on the 2nd floor. My daughter, my niece, my uncle, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, that we affectionately call Bump Bump, they all stayed with me. We had rain, and we had thunder, and we had all the things that make up a storm. But we heard something that sounded like an explosion. I guess that was the levees breaking at that time. That's when the water went from the tire of the car, and I mean the bottom of the tire of the car, to the 2nd floor within like 20 minutes.
The water was steady rising and rising. I look outside and noticed that it was flooding. Well, you know, we know the drainage systems is bad down here. So I started getting worried.
The water started coming in different. The water started changing colors. Actually, we even saw fish in the water when it first started coming, but the water got higher and higher.
We got up this morning, and we just went and rained, and all of a sudden the water just started rising.
The water started rising faster and faster. We went back in the command post and said, this thing's a lot worse than we thought. And at the time when this was happening, we didn't really know the cause.
Water came on. In 3 minutes, it went from the ground to the roof.
I said, where is water coming from? We realized this is not a normal hurricane aftermath. Something's wrong. Something's wrong.
It came in like a tidal wave. Car lights started popping on as the water got higher. You know, we were wondering when it was going to stop.
When I looked out the window and I saw the cars starting to be swallowed, I said, oh well, I've lost everything. Once the water came into the house, you know, there was nothing else that could be done. The water was just inching up higher and higher and higher. It reached a good 6 feet inside of the house.
It's a disaster. The houses down here are destroyed. I've never seen nothing like this before.
My mother's 83 years old, so I don't know how well she made out.
Water's in their house. Yes, it's in the lower ninth ward.
The calls started coming in. It was almost at one burst. And you could hear the emergency because all of the phones started going off at the same time. Folks from St. Bernard Parish and Plaquemines Parish. And then we started getting the calls from folks in the lower ninth ward. There were so many people with the same issues trapped. And the lines were furiously busy.
Please, I'm begging you, we can't stay here. I can't breathe, my daughter can't breathe up here.
We were asking folks what their addresses were. And in finding out, it didn't matter what your address was because the force of the water had moved homes off of their foundations.
It was so much water. You know, it was just like opening a faucet. It's just pouring in. And the house was knocked off of its foundation. So the house was teetering. So we're all signaling to each other, you know, wait, don't move, don't move. You stay on this side, you stay right there, we're level right now. Then as the water would move the house, we had to adjust. We were like, okay, you go by the front door, you go there, you stay here. Everybody had their own portion of something to this recipe of survival. And then we start hearing barrels from off the railroad track or wherever they came from. And they're hitting the stairs. And we thought the neighbors were dead or dying downstairs.
The water, it's moving at such a fast rate. I could see the water running in through the baseboards, under the door. You're looking at your life, the life that your parents provided for you, your belongings being ruined. Your mother's furniture that she prided is being thrown against the wall. Your icebox or refrigerator is floating. You move things to a higher level. You get as much in the attic as you possibly can. But when you go towards the front of the house and you realize that that water is at least that high in the street or higher, then you're worried about an exit plan. You gotta get out.
So it's safe to say that house is history. It's gonna burn down to the water line. If I have a hard time picking that one up on the camera, okay, I see it behind the trees.
We were at the Lake Marina Tower, just right on the other side of 17th Street Canal. And me and firefighter Gabe King and Captain Paul Helmers were watching the winds on the south side of Lake Marina Tower.
18 stories in the air right now.
Well, I brought my camera with me for obvious reason that it's very likely you will have things that you want to film in a Category 5 hurricane.
Oh wow, the water's getting pretty deep down there. I have to keep an eye on the water and see what it looks like in another 30 minutes.
When you see water coming up that much, 6 inches every 15 minutes, that's 2 feet an hour. You're just talking an incredible flow of water. So yeah, when I spotted the 200-foot area of water coming through, I was 100% certain of what I was looking at.
It looks like there's a possible levee breach on the 17th Street Canal, right on the angle behind that burning house. I don't see any levee existing there. Looks like it's at least 3 feet higher on the outside. Hey, you want to see it better, Joe? Let me focus in with this.
I was hesitant to make the report because we didn't have a confirmation. But Captain Helmers, he zoomed in on that breach.
Yeah, you want to see it better? Watch right here, Joe, look. And you can see that the 6-foot wall is gone. You can see the water pouring through.
And my heart just sank. So I radioed it in. We have a breach in a levee. I think I reported it from 4 to 10 feet wide at the time. I didn't want there to be any confusion on the other end at all. Everybody knows the implications of a broken levee. The entire city flooding, possibly thousands of people dying, could be the end of the city.
It was apocalyptic.
We all knew exactly what we needed to do. We knew that we needed to get boats, needed to get as many people as we could, as fast as we could, and we knew that there was just a certain amount of time that people had.
I ran into our fire chief, Charles Parent, and he said that he had 2 or 3 firemen reporting a very large break in the levee. And I questioned him and I said, "Are you sure? What do you mean a break?" And he said, "That's what I said to them."
I was in the communication room in the Emergency Operations Center, and I heard a report come in that the levee at the 17th Street Canal had busted and that heavy flows of water were flowing into the city. From that moment on, I knew that Katrina was going to be something different. The levee busting in New Orleans was a worst-case scenario, so I immediately called back to FEMA headquarters to alert them that there are reports that a levee had broken. I can't confirm it, that's just what I had heard. My tone at the time was, I think, real concern. I know that that information then was passed along to others so that they would know. Now, whether they believed it or not, I had no control over. I could only tell them what I had heard, but I hadn't seen any of it yet.
Boy, that's some water, man. Pushing through that. That's coming through that, bro. The mood was kind of easy in the beginning. At least we did have some shelter. But things started deteriorating real fast. Storm coming through the dome. But that water is trying to get in there for real. The only light we really had if you went inside the Superdome was from the 4 holes in the rooftop.
Of course, they have emergency generators, but no air conditioning. So that's going to be obviously an interesting situation as the morning progresses.
Started getting more muggy in there. It was really, really hot, steamy.
It's getting hot in there. The toilets are overflowing.
All the bathrooms got flooding everywhere to the time, man. It's nasty already. The smell was getting worse. People was kind of like closed in, and it just wasn't good. So we went on the outside where we could congregate and where people had radios.
Hurricane Katrina hitting the Big Easy very hard today.
And as the day was going on, it was having more and more reports.
Police and fire said there was a breach at the 17th Street Canal.
All you see is water, pretty much, and the tops of roofs.
A significant part of the city is underwater. A significant part of the city is damaged.
What you hear are people screaming for help.
They have confirmed reports of bodies floating.
We didn't see water yet, so we just hearing all of these horror stories. And call after caller, call after caller, call after caller. They couldn't get to the people. You just really don't know what's going on.
The water was coming up more, and we had 3 non-swimmers, and then we had the swimmers, myself, who's injured, and my daughter and my niece. They were saying, "We'll get help." I was like, "No, we can't separate, and I can't help you if you go off somewhere." They stayed. I convinced them to stay, and my uncle and I went on the porch, and the Mississippi River and Lake Pontchartrain looked like everything had merged. There were trains floating. My neighbors are gone. I've never felt so isolated to where I just thought the world has ended and we're the only few people that are left. So now we got water tower ankles on the 2nd floor of an extremely tall house. So now we have to move to the attic. Now, mind you, I have a broken neck and a broken back, and I'm in a cast, and I have a brace on my neck. So before we went into the attic, my daughter started writing our names and our date of births on the wall. Just like I'm writing our names and our date of birth, so when they come inside the house and find us, I say, find us? She said, yeah, because Mom, we're probably not going to make it through this. It's, too much. So I erased it off the wall. It's like, girl, we're going to live. We're going to make it through this. I felt hopeless during that time when she was writing that on the wall, but something inside me told me, this isn't it. You got to convince them that this isn't it, because they're giving up. If we keep our heads together, we're going to live. We're going to be okay.
It's almost 1 o'clock p.m. now. Storm's dying down pretty good. We're gonna go out pretty soon and try to get a boat.
One thing about firemen are going to find a way to do what they need to do. It's obvious that our job at that moment is to help people who are stuck in the floodwaters and possibly drowning.
There's not a lot of water in that big boat. Go.
We were looking around for boats, and we did spot 2 on the street. We swam to that building, and we got that boat.
We had some other guys, they could hot wire boats. There was a parking garage, so we went and actually siphoned a lot of gas out of those cars. And as soon as the wind died down at 2 o'clock, we launched operations.
When we started, we probably had 4 or 5 boats that we had commandeered. I told the guys, I said, go find whatever boat you can find, let's get to work. Once comms went down, it was chaotic. Once communications went down, you just went to work. We have that, you gotta have direction. Who's gonna do what? Who's gonna be responsible for this? Who's gonna be responsible for that? We never had any of that. Never had access to any of that.
We expected FEMA to come in quickly and that it would be something that would allow the local officials the reprieve needed for that type of catastrophe. It was obvious that we were dealing with something bigger than our capabilities.
Means you were on your own. But we figured it out. We made it, we went and did what we had to do to get to the neighborhoods that we had to get into to try to save people's lives. We set up quadrants. You were a sergeant, you had 1 quadrant. You took your men, put 1 officer on every boat, you assigned that quad. And that's how we broke it down. I'm worried about saving people's lives. That's my job. And that's what the hell, pardon my French, that's what we did. That's what we did.
Now, you're hearing things on the radio, but until you see it, you just can't imagine it. It was kind of like a moment that you not in shock, but you're almost like, oh my God, I did not realize it was even though you're hearing things on the radio, you don't realize it's that bad.
It was hot as hell, and you could only imagine how awful it would be if you're stuck on a roof. If you're not in superior physical condition, you probably wouldn't survive that. So yeah, it was really important to get people off of roofs as quickly as possible.
The TAC team started doing their methodical searches, pulling out as many people as we could. To us, it was you get there, get the people on a boat. If they want to go, you take them. If they don't want to go, they're going to stay there because we're not going to fight with them and flip a boat.
How many people y'all got?
Just them.
Good, good shape.
You get in a hasty mood, so you're just out there trying to pick up as many people as you can, wherever you can, until you're able to get some solid intelligence.
Some areas, water was 15, maybe 16 feet deep. We would shut off the motor and holler, and someone hollers back, and obviously if someone sees you, we would go very slowly, so people would have a chance. They'd hear our motor. There was a family on a roof, and we went to go rescue them, and they said, no, not us, the house right there. We can hear a man screaming.
Turns out that he was standing on his tub, and the water was up to his neck, and he didn't have much longer.
The water was halfway up the bathroom window, one of those small bathroom windows, and they broke out the whole window, and they were able to drag him out the window. And so, yeah, they got him out of that house just in time.
How long you think this water gonna stay up here like this?
You know the dire position that these people are in. You got elderly, you got young kids, you got women with children, pregnant women up there. The numbers didn't even come to my mind because I knew people were in trouble. Some people just feel bad because you know they never had the means to get out. And if they got out of their houses, got in their car, or tried to run, the water was going to take them away. There was no way in the world they were going to survive that. It was absolutely horrific.
Well, we were walking around. We went up the street a couple of blocks, and I would say there's nothing like the flooding that we might have anticipated. This was clearly a horrific storm. Clearly, it is going to be a mess to clean up. But, Wolf, they were expecting Armageddon here. Armageddon, it wasn't.
The worst case scenario was that we would be floating atop 25 feet of a highly toxic soup here in downtown New Orleans. That's not the case.
What they were predicting for New Orleans was 175-mile-an-hour winds and a direct hit from Hurricane Katrina. They didn't get that. The folks in New Orleans are certainly lucky.
The city of New Orleans is filling up with water, but all the media was down in the French Quarter. There's no water in the French Quarter.
That is Bienville down the street.
So they're reporting it's not as bad as it seemed. Maybe New Orleans dodged a bullet.
New Orleans indeed dodged what they expected would be a very strong direct hit.
But they didn't know. They didn't know any more than what was in the neighborhood that they were standing in.
There was no water in the French Quarter because anything that is close to the river is at the highest point in the city of New Orleans. So therefore, there's no water.
We're in a bowl. We got the Mississippi River levee over here and the lake levee over here. The city's in the middle. So we are surrounded by water. We're 6 to 8 feet below sea level. And we have some battles with the water staying out. So during the storm, there are sewage and waterboard pumping stations throughout the city that propel the water into the outfall canals. It's a very good system when it works.
Please, I heard the boats, but nobody stopped to get us. We heard all these boats.
They're probably getting someone in the area also, ma'am.
You know how much more this is supposed to come up? I don't know how much more, sir. Please go to your attic, sir.
I'm gonna die. The water is steady rising in the attic, ma'am.
All right. All of us who worked in an emergency operations center became the lifeline for people who were calling for assistance, and our resources were stretched beyond measure. There was no playbook written for a disaster and a catastrophe of that level.
By Monday afternoon, there were several reports that levees had busted.
That straight ahead is the London Outfall Canal, if I'm not mistaken. Over there is the greatest break of the levee. Now, there's a huge chunk of concrete you can't even see, but you can see that diagonal piece of concrete.
So I called back to FEMA headquarters. I certainly wasn't informed about any actions that were taking place, and I knew I was the only one from FEMA in New Orleans. And that was the moment where I felt that they couldn't grasp the severity. Nobody ever believes the worst case scenario. I knew at the time that lives were being lost left and right. There were thousands of people on rooftops. My mindset at the time was, I gotta get on a helicopter. I got a little pushback when I talked to the Coast Guard saying, I don't know that we're gonna be able to get you on a helicopter. I informed them that the White House was really counting on me to give them some situational awareness. Not completely truthful, but I just needed to find a way to get on that helicopter because I really needed to put eyes on what was happening. Anybody not believing what I was saying was just going to delay any kind of response. I got on, and the pilot said to me, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "I need to see how bad this is." We flew out towards Slidell and could tell that the bridge was all damaged and impassable. The airport underwater, that there was no access into the city. We flew all over the city of New Orleans. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And I saw that the actual levees had breached in New Orleans. So when we flew to the 17th Street Canal, and you could see just this humongous gap in the levee. It wasn't overtopping, it wasn't minor water going over. The levee was gone. I said at the time, 80% of the city looked like it was underwater. It was a guess. It was a pretty good guess. This is it. This is the worst case scenario. We talked about it. It's here. In the morning, I gathered everybody into a conference room at the Emergency Operations Center, and I asked them to lay out a map. And I then proceeded to tell them everything that I had just seen, where all the floodwaters were. I remember looking at Mayor Nagin and seeing a face of disbelief and almost of, what do we do now?
I don't know how to brace you for the city.
I told the mayor, you need to make a list of all of the priorities that you think you're going to need in this environment where everything is damaged. It were things like shelters, knowing that there were people that needed shelter. Rescues. How are we going to rescue people from rooftops?
To what every department needed in order to run the city in this new, very strange dynamic that was occurring. We were a different city. The old city was gone. When that list of our needs was handed over to Marty Bahamonde and FEMA, maybe naively, but we expected immediate results. That wasn't actually the case.
FEMA's not really a first responder. Local officials are first responders, the state with the National Guard are first responders, and FEMA wasn't designed to be a first responder. Back then, at that time, we put a lot more emphasis on state and local governments to handle the initial response and preparation for disasters. And only when they couldn't handle it were we actually then designed to come in on the back end and provide that support.
We knew just from putting all the puzzle pieces together that catastrophic failure was beginning to occur around the city beyond our capacity, way beyond our capacity.
One set of power lines there, clear down there.
Roger.
Basket coming up. Roger. Basket coming up. Moving survivor in the cabin.
The Coast Guard was able to assist immediately because we're not like the National Guard that needs permission or a formal request from the governor. We didn't need to be asked by anybody.
Roger, you're on hot, Mike. Turning at 2 o'clock, check water.
My crew had a game plan that we were going to fly and just pick a location that had a lot of people.
And source ready?
It didn't take us long. We found a huge 3-story apartment complex with people everywhere. We trained to get people off of, cruise ships, sailboats, We had never trained to get people off of rooftops or off of balconies with urban hazards.
Copy it. Someone's going out the door. Someone's outside the door. Have target in sight. Forward and right. 75.
We picked this balcony with women and children and elderly people. And when a mother is so desperate to get her baby out of danger that she hangs him over a 2-story balcony, that's alarming. She didn't even bat an eyelash. It was like, I don't know you. You're connected to a giant, loud helicopter with hurricane force winds blowing us around. But here's my baby. Get him out of here.
I'm ready for pickup. Command 5.
And, you know, I just snatched him, and he's so small. We don't have rescue equipment for babies. So to carry a baby in your bare arms with nothing keeping him from falling except for me is very nerve-wracking.
Swimmer and survivor are in the cabin.
My first day, I rescued 48 people. We just didn't stop. We were picking up as many people as we could, as fast as we could, around the clock for days and days. And honestly, kind of waiting for the cavalry to come, but it was all about life-saving. That's it.
And basket is clear of the rooftop. And you are clear to move back and left.
As we move people out of the Superdome, people begin to move in. So people are coming out of either parishes where they've been in their homes and not out on the streets. They're continuing to come out of homes where maybe they were on the second floor, and now they can get out and start moving around. And there is just simply no way we can estimate the numbers of people that are out there like that.
When the levees broke, everything changed. Our population doubled. And that was really our first indication that, okay, something worse has now happened. And there's a stage 2.
They just had so many people just coming in. It doubled real fast. It just kept going nonstop. It also made you more aware that if people getting rescued like this and they flying this many people in, now it's starting to grow with numbers. So whatever so-called plan they had for food or drinks or whatever the case may be, now they wasn't gonna be ready.
The population coming in pre-landfall is dramatically different than post-landfall. Pre-landfall, it was by and large people who chose to come to the Superdome. They were nervous but optimistic, and we were kind of all in it together. And then things rapidly and dramatically changed when we became aware of a second wave of people who were now presenting at the Superdome. Those people had, in many cases, had ridden out one of the worst nights of their life.
Every rescue boat that goes out comes back heavy with human cargo, and they will be at it for days to come.
The police aren't coming, and that is a reality when you have a disaster. There aren't enough police to respond. There were too many people, and you can only help so many people. You can only do what you can do. A small group of firemen can't help everybody. It's just not physically possible.
What's your first name? Shirley.
We were watching the news. We were seeing people on the roofs waving towels and flags. We seen people floating in the water. Felt hopeless.
When I saw the images of the lower ninth ward, I was just so sad to see it because I know how hard the folks worked to get their homes. And now they were going to have to start all over again.
I'm 62 years old. I've never been involved in nothing like this in my life.
And I got to ask you, what'd you leave behind?
What now today? Everything.
Quite a few of the folks that lived there were seniors. How are they going to do that? My family was also caught in Hurricane Betsy back in 1965.
Betsy is here. Gusts now topping 100 miles per hour.
Tides 3 feet above normal, and escape routes will be cut off shortly.
The storm was coming into New Orleans, and suddenly we heard the explosion, but we thought it was from the storm, and then we saw all this water gushing, coming to us from the levee.
Hurricane Betsy was a storm more powerful than Katrina. It was on a worse track for New Orleans, and as a consequence, levees flooded.
We'll rebuild. We'll rebuild. Oh, yeah. You don't think this is knocked you out by it? No, indeed. We're going to build the levees higher and have a prettier community.
After Hurricane Betsy, we ended up with a significant funding program to build hurricane levees. There are computer models that were available to the Corps of Engineers since they started building these levees in the late 1960s that they didn't use. They didn't get the science right on the height that they needed to build it. They didn't get the geotechnical engineering right in deciding whether the site was suitable. And lastly, they did designs that we knew would fail. They had done their own research on some of these and had found that the failures would occur. To add insult to injury, as Hurricane Katrina was approaching, the levees weren't finished. So the net result was catastrophic structural failure.
It's really been a double disaster. We had the hurricane, and on top of that, we had a flood.
But both of these things, with all due respect, sir, were predicted. They knew it was a Category 3 hurricane hitting the area 48 hours before it struck. People have been writing about the potential disastrous conditions of the levee system for a really long time, years and years and years. There is a sense that everyone knew a disaster could happen and no one was really prepared.
This is a natural disaster, the likes of which our country may have never seen before.
The president, that he says he doesn't think anyone anticipated the breach of the levees. Now, I don't know how he can say that, given the fact that everybody anticipated the breach of the levees.
We knew immediately that the levees had breached once it just continued to rise and rise and rise. And as I said, from past experience, we knew that the levees had breached.
People were passing with boats, rescuing people. When I seen the water, in the way that the water was coming, I said, they did it again.
Witnessing these things is what led us to use the terms catastrophic structural failure. It wasn't the storm. It was shoddy design and construction by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
We had water all the way up to my mama's doorstep. And so we started getting kind of worried. And the only thing we could do is just try to get to some kind of shelter. We just, we didn't want to stay there, and the water was steady rising and rising and rising. And, we didn't have no way out. So we took off walking. But where we was at, it was like, what we gonna do with the little children? Because the water is almost 4 feet. Well, they had this dough floating in the water. So we grabbed the dough, put the children on top, and pushed the dough so it could glide through the water.
In my neighborhood, we were lucky because my property sits 3 feet 9 inches above sea level. So I would not have left my house, except for the fact that the militia, guys that were in flatboats with AKs, came and knocked on our door and told me I had to leave my house. I didn't have water in my house, so it was not a necessity for me to leave. And since many buildings are built at least 3 feet off the ground, a lot of the people around here felt the same way.
We gotta get out.
So we were forced to leave the house and walk 1/8 of a mile from the residence to what was supposed to be a safe haven. They sent us in a direction where the water was deeper. So my sister and I were carrying kids and helping these seniors who were with us. Man, I don't think I was more frightened about anything than walking in that water.
You couldn't see under that, so you just really walking on faith. And my brother, he kicked the stop sign because he didn't see it under the water, so the pressure that he was applying to, you know, to be able to walk through the water, and that he kicked a big gash in his leg almost 2 inches deep. There wasn't nothing he can do, so he walked in the water with an open wound. The first thing I thought about was we're in this dirty water, and then the germs from the water. That scared me more than anything.
We were just trying to find refuge on higher ground.
The safest thing to do is take that raft to the interstate.
And one of the highest points in this area was up on the Interstate 10. So that's where we headed.
And all you could see is all the people just coming towards the bridge, you know, because the bridge was really like the safest place. You know, my main focus was to get the kids to safety. You know, anywhere where they had shelter, where they can rest. From where we was at on the bridge, you can kind of see the Superdome. And the Superdome was swamped with people.
They just kept bringing more and more people to the Superdome. You see high water vehicles with 100 people stacked into it, bringing people to the Superdome and dumping them off. And people were walking in the water, coming to the Superdome as if that was the savior place.
This was a population who were coming to the Superdome or being brought to the Superdome because there was nowhere else for them to go. Many times, I would say unwilling. They certainly didn't want to come to the Superdome, but it was desperation.
We didn't know where we was going. The military was running people away from their houses. Like, you had to go. It didn't matter where you went or whatever, like, you had to go.
We seen tens of thousands of people on the bridge. Eventually, they also got to the Superdome. Now, we 3-4 times the number now.
We don't have nowhere to go. My house is underwater. I don't even have another house. I don't even know where my children at.
Seeing people coming in rescued, it was like, man, something really bad is going on the outside. Because all you hearing is helicopters, you're seeing people getting dropped off. At least they was out of one bad situation.
Look, they were coming back for you.
But they didn't know they was coming to another hell.
It's really, we're living like dogs and pigs up in here. We need help.